In our social TV newscast with Misa Marshall, we focus on the pressing issue of waste management and sustainability. As environmental concerns continue to grow, one company is taking a stand and proposing a bold solution. Impact Recycling, a leading recycling company in South Africa, is embracing the concept of circularity to address the challenges of waste and create a more sustainable future. We sat down with John Hunt, Managing Director of Impact Recycling, to learn more about their vision and the potential impact of a circular economy. John, so thank you very much for your time. Maybe let's just start at an origin point to let our audiences know. Just talk to us a little bit about Impact Recycling.
Okay, so Impact Recycling is one of the four business units of the Impact Group, where Impact is essentially a paper and packaging company. We make paper at 3 paper mills. We sell that paper to our corrugated plants. We have about 9 corrugated plants around the country. And we make corrugated boxes, which we supply to industrial and fruit markets. So those are 2 of our business units. We also have a plastics packaging business, making plastic packaging for various consumer markets, and also making crates and wheelie bins and other types of plastic materials. And then my business unit, which is Impact Recycling, is a business unit that collects recyclable materials. So our primary purpose was to provide those to our paper mills. So our paper mills make paper from recycled paper. That was our original function. But as we were collecting paper, we realized we had all the infrastructure and the facilities and ability to collect other recyclable materials. And so nowadays we collect a huge amount of glass, which we sell onto audacious and for them to recycle. We also collect plastic bottles, PET bottles, for recycling into new cool drink bottles, etc. And we collect a lot of white paper grades, A4 copy paper and papers like that, printing papers, which we provide into the tissue market. And having sort of been involved in the environmental industry for many, many years, our business started in the days before it was fashionable to recycle. In the 60s and 70s, we were already operating. But now our business has evolved into where we have found solutions for other companies to help manage their waste management issues and find innovative and creative solutions to disposing of waste in a safe and hopefully finding ways to recycle and reuse and add value to the waste as opposed to just dumping it and hoping it goes away. So that's really
it's quite. Sorry? Yeah, sorry to jump in there. Just something that struck me, as you said, we started this process before it became fashionable to get involved in recycling, and just with that kind of concept, do you actually believe it's become fashionable, or is there still a lot of? I mean, everybody talks a really great game. Everybody talks about the impact of recycling. Loads of retailers, loads of businesses. But do you think that there is a deep, meaningful sense of understanding of recycling and its impact, or is it just something we've got to do because it's the right thing to do?
I think fashionable is probably not the correct word. I mean, it's everyone knows that they should be doing it, and so we talk about it. But I mean, there's obviously a lot of lip service that's given to it as opposed to real action. But I think there's certainly a depth of understanding of it that's far more than it was many years ago. So I think the world is moving in that direction, and a lot of people make the effort, but I think that sometimes the effort involved is excessive to be able to recycle. And part of the challenge for businesses like ours is to say, how can we make it easier for people to be able to recycle and to participate in this economy, the circular economy. People are very busy. You've got lots of activities you're doing. You've got kids at school. You've got other things that you have to take care of. And if you keep adding things that you should be doing, it becomes burdensome. You don't really want it to be that. You want it to be easy and simple to do. And that's really, I think, the big challenge that sits before businesses like mine.
And one of the things that, as you talk us through kind of that kind of state of mind, is how do we get the messaging right? Because I think part of what and how I engaged with the content was that we kind of need to really, really think about the value chain. We really need to understand, and in a fair way, I must admit that there's still this very silo mentality around some of the recycling initiatives. And
Yeah.
as a leader in the industry, how do you then develop the kind of messaging that onboards other businesses, that onboards your community? Because I'm sure there are certain members in your community that are still coming to grips with the benefits of this kind of circular economy. What kind of messaging then do you put out as a leader?
Well, I think one of the issues with the environmental messaging is so often it's couched in really negative language. And we talk of the doom and gloom and disaster, and we're going to destroying our environment, we're destroying our world, all these sort of things, and people sort of end up in a sort of a bit of a panic about it and not really having any idea what to do, and sort of hoping for some magic wand that's going to be waved and solve all our problems. But I think the reality of making progress in big social issues like this is that you've got to start where you're at. You have to have big dreams, and I think if you saw some of the pictures that we have in our campaigns, they're really about putting a dream out there. It's sort of a dream that you could put your old pair of shoes into a machine and you get out a new pair of shoes. Those are complete dreams. They don't exist in reality at the moment. But when you know where you want to go, then you have to start where you are. And we can talk about industries need to do a whole lot of things, but industries at the end of the day are nothing more than a collection of people. And every single person within that can do something. If you're a buyer in a company, perhaps you should ask some questions about, okay, where's this product that I'm buying coming from? Could I find a solution to providing this material that's more environmentally friendly, or has less impact on the environment, or perhaps more people friendly? And that's really where we have to start, where we are at. In your office, do you have a separate bin for recyclable materials? Simple things like that. And those make a surprising difference. In our business, we collect 600,000 tons of recyclable material. But when you consider that's 600 million kilograms. And I talk about kilograms because we actually collect it by the kilogram. The people who come into in our branches, and they will deliver a bag full of waste paper or PET bottles. It's collected literally kilogram by kilogram. And so, we feel like we can't do anything about this because it's just too big. And the messaging overwhelms us, but we actually can, because our business works that way. We collect it by the kilogram, and every kilogram makes a difference. And eventually you've got 600 million kilograms of stuff, that's going to be recycled and made into new products. So I think, if I can give any message to people, is that we can actually make a difference. We're not disempowered in this field. And what I love about this industry so much is that it doesn't require you to have great education. It doesn't require you to have great skills. A lot of the people who make their living in this industry are walking the streets, collecting material, earning an honest living, working really hard, but making such a difference to our society and our environment. It's a wonderfully important industry in that respect.
And I want to talk to you about industries, but I just want to very quickly pick up on what you just said about these individuals that are walking the streets, that are collecting. And I don't know if you have the same sentiment, and I'm sure you guys have discussed it, but I was fortunate enough to go to a conference yesterday, and I ended up speaking to a gentleman who was a former waste picker.
Yeah.
And he is now elevated through the ranks. He's now doing massive work in townships like Soweto. But he talks about what waste picking meant for him when he was down and out. And how he was able to provide for his family. A very, very smart guy. And it's quite interesting to see a negative sentiment towards waste pickers. And that seems to have changed. Is that a fair thing to say, or am I doing it at the wrong end?
I really hope so. I have the deepest of respect for them. So I've obviously met many of them and worked with them, and they are unbelievably hardworking people. And they're determined to make a way in an honest, real way of difference. And not only do they make a living for themselves, but a lot of them sort of lift themselves out of poverty. I've seen, we've had experience with families who've started small waste picking business, and then sort of built up to a buyback center, educated their kids. And, one of the ladies who supplies us has been running a buyback center for many years, but her children are lawyers and doctors now. And it's given her the
Yes, and that's what I experienced yesterday with this gentleman too. He started as a waste picker and he now runs a buyback center.
Yeah. There was a guy in Durban who started as he used to drive a bakkie and collect paper, and eventually owned his own paper mill. So it's people who are prepared to put their heads down and work and make a difference, and you can only have respect for people like that.
And I shudder to think what our environment would look like without waste pickers, and because they do play such a crucial role.
No, it's absolutely. And the other thing that's often sort of overlooked is if you consider it from an economic point of view, it costs our cities probably about 1,000 rand a ton to dispose of waste material on a landfill site. They're very expensive to create, very expensive to operate, and the transport and everything that goes with it. So if you take just for argument's sake, a ton of material that would have gone to landfill site, that would have cost the economy 1,000 rand. By the time it lands up, say, at a paper mill, it's worth close to 3,000 rand. In that little exercise, you've created 4,000 rands worth of wealth that didn't exist.
Wow.
And that's what this community does. They're actually creating value out of nothing, and that's a remarkable contribution. And one of the things that was quite fashionable a while ago was to talk about sustainability in terms of three legs. The environment,
yes,
people, and the economy. And I think that's such a smart way of looking at it, because nothing is sustainable unless all three are actually working together. And this is what the sustainability of what waste pickers are doing. They're creating livelihoods for themselves. They're improving the environment, and they're creating real economic value. And that's to be lauded, actually.
Yeah, and I'm really, really happy that we picked up this conversation with you. And I think we really do need to at least put a spotlight on not necessarily the challenges, but there are some serious wins in this. Quickly coming back to another thing that you mentioned, you talked about industries. What industries, and maybe it's not a question at pointing fingers, but merely highlighting, what are some of the industries that need to kind of work on contributing towards the circular economy?
Yeah, it's very difficult to pick on various things. I think the big sort of smokestack industries, manufacturing to a large extent, I think the messaging is got to those types of businesses, and we see a lot of activity. They're taking the environmental issues quite seriously, and things like the ISO standards and green standards that they're working to have really driven that quite hard in the sort of traditional smokestack industries, I guess. But I guess there are a lot of other industries that perhaps are not. Don't see themselves as manufacturing, say in retail and places like that. And we've seen quite a big drive come from our big retailers pushing back on the products that they buy and saying, well, is your packaging in that material sustainable, and can you do something better about it and make a more sustainable solution? And that's starting to drive a lot of activity and innovation and thinking back into the manufacturing sector. Then there's the fashion industries and places like that where sustainability is not necessarily high on people's minds. Products that you sort of buy and don't necessarily throw away immediately, and you think, well, I'm going to own this for 5 or 10 years or whatever, but it still has an end of life. And sometimes the products that sort of have a multiple use over many years, we sort of don't think about where's that going to end up at some point, because it's still at some point it's got to be disposed of, and the thinking around that, I think, is lagged behind.
Sir, thank you very much for your time and spending it with us.
Sam, it's been great chatting to you. Thank you very much for the invitation.